Hello, Amber, and welcome to Unabashed You. It's such a pleasure to have you here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I know that we were talking about how we connected, and it was through Don Ward. So it's always fun to
hmm
kind of trace back how somebody comes on your radar.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and get to know you a little bit better. Is there anything you want the listeners to know as we get started here?
Well, some important things to know about me. So I am a writer. I write on my website, choosejoyinthemidst.com. Choose Joy in the Midst came out of me walking through a lot of very difficult adversity and trials in my life and trying to find resilience in that, and trying
Mm,
to come out, um, come out where you're not just focused on what you're dealing with, but you are fighting, fighting hard to find joy, even in the midst of like deep darkness and deep sorrow.
right.
I am a truth teller.
Mm,
I love to seek out truth, both evidence-based, science-based, whether medical or psychology, as well as biblically based. The strong faith in God, and that's where I write from on my website. I write both from a faith perspective, but then I also write a lot about trauma and mental health and PTSD, and talk about it from a psychology standpoint.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's really so fascinating to me, the way you've been able to kind of blend those all together, the way you've been able to take, science, psychology, and then marry it to your faith, which,
hmm
really just, I would imagine, sort of enhances your faith, actually makes it stronger. Some people don't really
Yeah.
get that you can, you can have both. Not that, I mean, I would not say that science was superior in any way
hmm
to God, but the fact that you can see the value in science and bring that into your faith without dismissing it or diminishing it, I think is really important to note.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I would say, and I know that there's probably a lot of different faiths represented from your audience. For me, um, truth comes from God. And so the truth that is in science, we have access to that and we can use that for our healing and for our health. Um, Probably that passion for me of bringing evidence-based psychology and medicine, and marrying that to my faith, is because I'm a medical provider.
Right. Okay.
So I'm a PA, actually, a physician assistant. Yeah, I value that, obviously.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that I really appreciate that about you, just getting to know you right now, like the listeners
hmm
are too. What three words would you use to describe yourself?
Well, I think I may have already said it, but authentic.
Okay.
I wanna come in genuine and hopefully be real with others and then be real with me. So authentic, tenacious is
That's
another
good.
word. Tenacious, I decided on that word because I have been the caregiver for my husband through significant mental health issues, as well as a caregiver for significant diagnoses for two of my children.
Okay.
So fighting hard for life, fighting hard for healing, for the right answers.
Mm-hmm.
Tenacious.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes. Well, and in your situation, which I think we're going to learn more about in just a
Mm-hmm.
bit,
Yeah.
you have kind of had to be. You
Mm-hmm.
have heeded the call and risen to the occasion to be tenacious on
Mm.
benefit of those you love, for the benefit of those you love. It's
Yeah.
just it's really a beautiful privilege when you think about it that way.
It is. Yeah. comes at a cost to yourself, but it is
I
a,
have no doubt.
yeah, it is an absolute privilege. Yeah.
And your third word?
My third word would be compassionate. Yeah. A friend told me that just a couple days ago. And I was like, empathy is another word that very much is, I love, but yeah, compassionate. I desire, especially in this realm of entering into other people's pain.
Mm-hmm.
That is a sacred thing. That's
Right.
an honor to be able to have others share with you what they have walked through and their pain, and to come toward that with compassion,
Mm.
respect, understanding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very good. And those three together really start to paint who you are and the qualities that I'm guessing, really had to rise and be magnified for the benefit of those you love. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that. All right, let's learn a little more about you through two truths and a lie. Do you know how this
Okay.
goes? You say three
Yes.
things and
Yes.
then I see how I do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, my two truths and a lie.
Yeah.
So I have been to France, and I'm a runner, and I'm writing a book.
Okay, and you went real simple, which is very nice.
Hmm.
You've been to France, sure, why not? A runner, gosh, that's tricky because, and writing a book, I mean, you are a writer, so
Hmm.
maybe you've already written the book, and maybe you have an idea for a future book, but you're not actually writing the book. So that makes this one tricky.
It is
Okay,
tricky.
it is
Yeah.
tricky. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, look at how simple you were, but look at how effective yours are, because this is not a slam dunk at all. I'm going to go with that you've not been to France as the lie. How'd I do?
You are correct. Yeah, you are correct. I have not been to France.
Is that somewhere you'd
I
like to go?
Well, I would love to. I put that there though, because I've been to Romania. I
Oh,
had at first put
wow.
I've been to Romania, and then I ended up changing it to France. But
Okay.
yeah, but I went to Romania, actually when I toward the end of college for me, and I was able to go on a medical mission trip,
Wow.
with a group, and we were able to go into the rural villages in
Mm-hmm.
Romania. And if you remember, Romania was affected by communism, obviously. So this was in a post-communist time, but still
Mm.
had the effects of communism there. And so anyhow, we did day clinics,
Wow.
partnering with the local churches to kind of come alongside. Certainly, you can't do a whole lot in a day, obviously, to help someone, but by coming alongside them with their maybe their physical ailments, then being able to connect them to the local church and share God with them too.
Well, that's what an
Yeah.
incredible opportunity that you had
Hmm.
and that you took advantage of that. Now,
Yeah.
that this means that so circling back, you are a runner.
I am a runner. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and you are writing a book.
I am writing a book. Yes. And I don't know
And
if you want me to share about that at
is
all
your book
or.
based on kind of an offshoot of your website, which, let's see, what did you say it was? Choosing joy in the midst. Is
Hmm.
that is that
Well, choose joy in the midst, and that's how you can find me, on the
okay?
socials as well. Uh, because I think it is a choice. But my book actually, is for the primary caregiver of suicide and
Oh my
trauma.
gosh, wow.
And that comes out of my story. I have been the primary caregiver for my husband, and he had combat trauma.
Hmm.
And so then, yeah, it was kind of pushed down, and it came out many years later. And then we walked through almost 2 years of me, in intense caregiving, trying to fight for his life, advocate for him, caregive for him. Yeah, and so my book is one for that caregiver to give them tools, in terms of, this is how I went through that time,
Mhm.
but then also to come alongside them, because as a caregiver of mental health crisis, um, you you feel so alone.
Mhm.
You feel so alone. You feel desperate, especially if you're dealing with suicide,
Mhm.
because you don't know, you don't, yeah, you you don't have
You don't,
control.
yeah, you don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
you
anything,
don't know,
right?
and you're carefully walking through, trying to discern, trying to make the right choices, as you are coming alongside and supporting your loved one.
Mhm.
And so, the book I'm writing is the book I would have loved to have had,
Ah,
so that
yes,
I didn't have to walk through and figure all of that out somewhat on my own.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now can I ask a clarifying question? This
Sure.
has to
Yeah,
do with
please.
you mentioned suicide. You
Yes.
haven't said that your husband has passed, so do we have like an attempt there, but not a success, or what? Where are we with that?
Yeah,
Because I think of suicide as being kind of
mhm.
a complete act.
Yeah, and there are different terms that are very specific when you're dealing with suicide. I do say, that I'm a caregiver of suicide, but really it's suicidality.
Okay,
The term of suicidality is going to encompass both suicidal ideation, attempts, plans, kind of an all-encompassing word, suicidality.
right.
My husband is alive, praise God. And during that year and a half, almost 2 years of time, at first, at first it started with his PTSD, and nightmares that were just affecting him so significantly. And so then he began to try to self-medicate and take care of it on his own. He didn't want it to affect us.
Mm,
And
mhm,
so, that came out with, some sleep medication, alcohol. And then, thankfully, the Lord allowed me to find out about his PTSD and what he was doing to try to cope. Because
mm,
there are coping strategies that anyone can potentially begin to use that are negative,
right.
when they're dealing with such pain. And so then, at that point, when I found out that we were dealing with PTSD, that was a pivotal moment. At that time, he told me he did not deal with suicidal ideation or thoughts. Fast forward a couple months later, and he finally was able to tell me that
Mm,
actually I do.
okay, he wasn't
Um,
ready apparently that first time it came up.
yeah, and I mean, quite frankly, you know, for me, especially with my strong faith, I was like, oh wow, this is not just a mental, emotional, physical fight. This is a spiritual fight too. And
Mhm,
I wanted to have, prayer warriors surround us and be praying, and have all of that support. But he couldn't have that at that time
mhm,
because um, there's a lot of shame and guilt present,
yes, yes.
with with PTSD. It can be with combat veterans, and so with that shame and guilt present, if he had been exposed, then we could have lost him. And so
Mm,
it was this very difficult journey of very carefully trying to caregive and be his support, and then very carefully widening our circle. of
Mhm.
support, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like a
Yeah.
very delicate
Hmm.
dance where
It
you
is.
have to just maneuver ever so carefully and gently all along the
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And yeah, that word discernment, it is. It's this very you you're praying that you're doing the right thing, moment to moment, day to day. And yes, we did end up, he did have suicide plan and hospitalization. And then he did also have another suicide attempt where I ended up having to save his life. Um,
Goodness.
and and so um, the reason why I mention that is because suicide, suicidality, or caregiving for someone who deals with mental health crisis to that degree, it doesn't just affect that person.
Right.
For me, I developed secondary PTSD from it, but then also
Goodness.
I had my own trauma. So, so for me, yes, I was a caregiver for mental health crisis, but then I also then have been a client or patient as well, and I've also needed my own therapy, my
Right.
own care, for healing, yeah, for my traumas.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
just really, whew, what a journey you are on. My
Mm-hmm.
goodness. Let's
Yeah.
touch a little bit of levity right now while we
Yeah,
continue to
absolutely.
get to know you, and then we're going to come back.
Yeah.
We are going to circle back to this very
I know
important
it's
topic.
heavy. It's heavy.
Yeah,
It is.
well,
It's heavy
yes, I
stuff.
understand.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not in your shoes, and yet I mean, as a compassionate person, I can understand that this is a lot for one person to deal with, just a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And I know that's just like the tip of the iceberg of your life. And I know there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot more there too. Let's just take
Yeah.
a couple quick little moments here to hear what your one of your favorite movies is.
Okay. Yeah, so one of my favorite movies, I mean, honestly, it's kind of a story of a lifetime, Pride and Prejudice.
Okay, right.
Okay, so if you're familiar with, the period pieces, the classics, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, I just love how yeah, just how she portrays the characters and just the depth of the relationships and yeah, interactions.
And is there a certain version that you like better than another, or you just like them all?
Well, the 6 hour one is quite nice. But yeah, the 2 hour is also good. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Yeah.
That's
Do you
fun.
like Jane Austen?
I've seen them. It's been a while. I won't say I dislike. So like, but maybe not to the degree that you're
Mm-hmm.
expressing
Mm-hmm.
liking. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
All right. And a person that inspires you.
Mm. So the person that came to mind was Anne Voskamp. I don't know if you're familiar with Anne
I
Voskamp.
am. I
Okay.
am.
Yeah, for anyone who's not, she is a Christian author, speaker, most widely known for her like 1000 Gifts. But the reason why she resonates so deeply for me and is inspiring is how she has dealt with trauma herself. In one of her books, The Broken Way, she talks about how yeah, how she had a very traumatic event when she was young, watching her sister die in a tragic accident.
Mm,
And she in her book she is again she's vulnerable. She is I don't know just transparent about about the pain, about how it
mm,
affected her and her
mm-hmm.
mom, but then also the way that she just leans into Jesus,
Right.
and leans into her faith, is inspiring. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I have an Advent book of hers that I just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't remember what it's called right
Probably.
now. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so a little bit of familiarity there.
yeah.
And what about a piece of wisdom you keep handy?
Well, again, uh, yeah, wisdom wise, I go to the Bible for the most part. And the one that came to mind, I love the Psalms a lot, but the one that came to mind was Philippians 4:13 and 14. So
Okay,
I'm
remind
sure.
us what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Philippians, and I may paraphrase a bit, but Philippians 4:13, Paul, the writer, he talks about that he can do all things through Christ who strengthens him, okay, or who strengthens me.
Mm-hmm.
And in a different passage, he talks about all the things he's walked through so much to the point of death and suffering and so many things that he's faced. But right before that, he talks about loss or plenty. He can do all things through Christ who strengthens him. And then the next verse is one that a lot of people don't look at much.
Mm-hmm.
And he's then talking to the people he's writing to, the church at Philippi, and he says, yet it was, and I'll paraphrase, but it was good of you to share in my trouble.
Ah,
And
ah.
yeah, and so I think for those who are faith-based or who are not, the idea there is, well, and obviously I can do all things through God who gives me strength,
Right.
but Paul's saying, but it was really good for
Mm.
you to come alongside. And in today's age, there's this idea of self-sufficiency and, oh, well, I
Mm-hmm.
can just do it on my own,
Right.
and especially with like mental health issues, um, we want to be hush hush about it. And I understand that from you want to be able to enter into a relationship or friendship with people that you can trust. But yeah, to not enter into community when you're walking
Mm-hmm.
through something really, really hard. Um, I think we all we need community. We need others around us.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
just double checking something here.
So,
Oh, I agree with that completely. We do need
yeah.
community, and we weren't born to just go through this life alone and just do everything alone.
Hmm.
We're meant to be, in community, in group, in
Yeah.
family, in, finding your people. All of that is so important.
Yeah. Being
Well, let's
seen. Yeah.
being seen, absolutely. Well, let's
Yeah.
come back to, I'm imagining, because we're doing classic passion and purpose, I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
imagining
Yeah.
and looking back at the little bit I know about you so far, that it's no coincidence and it's no surprise, I'm sure, to you that you have followed this path of science,
Mm-hmm.
psychology, you're a physician's assistant. I mean, all these things that you were, you know, um, interested in and maybe passionate
Mm-hmm.
about have now been completely used, not just in your professional life, but very
Mm-hmm.
heavily also in your personal life. So, as we
Yes.
speak about passion and purpose, what would you say is your passion and your purpose? Is it what you've been talking about?
Mm. I think our passion and our purpose can change over time. I think there can be different seasons for it. For me, certainly when I was younger, my passion was, to enter into the medical field to care for patients, which I obviously became a PA.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I was thrust into mental health crisis and walking through all of that, um, I would ask God with tears, please redeem this, redeem
Mm-hmm.
this story. Because there was so much that occurred that I did not believe that our story was just for us,
Right.
but that it was for others.
Right.
But it took many years to get to the place that we're at right now because, like I mentioned before, my husband, in the beginning, he
Right.
couldn't be exposed. He couldn't have people know about that. He, in the last, year or so, has come to a place where, yeah, he believes in this mission,
Mm.
this
Mm-hmm.
message, and he wants for others to also find healing as well. And so my passion really is to empower others, those who are stuck in trauma responses or who, let's say, they're stuck in really difficult life circumstances, and they're just struggling. And so my passion is to help them through, both modalities I already mentioned, through
Mm-hmm.
faith and through psychology, so that they can be empowered to live their life with more resilience, more strength, and more hope.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Um, yeah, I actually I put together a resource, and you can find it on my bios, but it's to help walk someone through how to find a mental health therapist.
Oh, very good.
And
Because
it's
that can
what,
be a very
mhm,
intimidating
yeah,
process.
yeah. And, I was having to figure that out during that year and a half when we were desperate.
Right.
And so anyhow, I ended up finally putting that together, yeah, for others.
Oh,
So
very
yeah,
good. Well,
yeah.
you strike me as somebody who's extremely generous with what you've been through, wanting, like you said, to your story was not just for you, it was for others too,
Mhm.
so that you could, impart a little bit of knowledge, some tools, some inspiration, some encouragement to help people be resilient.
Mhm.
Where is how long? Well, a couple questions come to mind. One is, how long ago was the crisis? Where are
Mm.
you in terms of time with the crisis?
Well, the one that I talk about mostly was about 7, 8 years ago.
Okay.
But we also had crisis um a year and a half ago.
Okay, and this brings
Yeah.
us to there's reference on your Instagram presence
Mhm.
about two children.
Oh, mhm.
Is this what you're talking about that happened
Uh,
more
no.
recently? No.
No, I was
Oh
also talking
gosh.
about,
Oh
yeah,
goodness. Goodness,
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, when you're dealing with mental health crisis, there can be relapse. And
Okay,
so
got
there
it.
was, yeah, there was relapse. But yeah, my husband's doing better now.
Good.
Wonderful.
Feel very grateful to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. But no, yeah, I do mention two of my children. I have four, but two of them have I've dealt with caregiving for significant life-threatening diagnoses. One has been a seizure disorder, and then another with severe anaphylactic food allergies.
Oh
And
gosh.
I've been the one with both.
Oh my
That's been
gosh.
two different traumas where the first seizure for my child, uh, yeah, was afraid we were going to lose him, and had to give him breaths. And so just yeah, so uh, I very much understand how, as a caregiver or as someone who has walked through a trauma event, how that can kind of show up as you are continually taking care of. It's not over necessarily because you're continually caring for that person and you're continually trying to advocate and make sure that they are doing well and, yeah,
How
navigating
do
that.
a couple more things come to mind. I mean, you are living in a life of heightened alert, heightened
Mm-hmm.
awareness. I mean,
I
your
have, yeah.
background is wonderful. I mean, wow, your background is such that that really helps you. Yet, how do you not sort of stay on kind of hyper
Mm-hmm.
vigilant alert? I mean, because sometimes I'm imagining you've learned the importance of self-care. You've had
Mm-hmm.
to somewhere. Like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
squeeze that in, and what do you do to kind of not stay
Mm-hmm.
in that state?
I mean, so definitely like through any of this, the anchor's been God and prayer. And but that is not the only thing. Therapy. Therapy.
Okay.
And not just any type of therapy. I know there's a lot of therapies out there. The one that I am passionate about, I guess, or a proponent of is EMDR therapy. If
Mm-hmm.
you're familiar, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, it is able to really help decrease the intensity of your kind of your stress response, your trauma
Mm-hmm.
response, or anything. It can deal with anything that has emotional pain to it. And I've walked through EMDR therapy and intensive EMDR therapy sessions for myself. My husband also actually um, I was trying during that, almost 2-year time frame. I was trying for a long time to get him EMDR therapy, and it
Mm-hmm.
took more than 6 months, maybe even 8
Wow.
months from the time I was trying to the time we finally got him that treatment, because we needed someone knew, um, who knew how to do EMDR and also was experienced with combat
Right, right,
trauma, which is different from civilian. Yeah.
right. It sounds
But
very
yeah,
specialized and
yeah,
the need to find somebody who
yeah.
understands both of those. Yeah, I'm imagining it would be very challenging.
But yeah, so self-care, I mean, I'm a runner. That is one of that's a stress reliever for me. And listening, to your body, in terms of yeah, sometimes you don't have energy and you need to
Yes, yes.
you need to be okay with that and give yourself grace.
Very
So yeah,
good.
just kind of yeah, and finding ways, outlets of joy, again.
Right. Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
circling back to part of what I'm imagining is your purpose is you want to excavate and mine those kind of pieces or parts of joy wherever you can. Can you leave
Mm-hmm.
us with one way we can do that as we kind of wrap up here?
Of one way to
Choose
choose
to find
joy
some
or to
joy.
find your
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
passion.
To choose joy when we're in the midst
Mm,
of trauma, we're in the midst of something happening to our loved one. What's a way that we can choose joy?
mm-hmm. Um, Well, considering things that you really enjoy yourself, it's sometimes different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
For me, being out in nature, can be calming and good. Getting together with someone who is a safe person, a
Mm-hmm.
trustworthy person, and just getting to be with them, snuggling with your kids,
Right.
um, you know, setting down your to-do list if you don't have the capacity for it, um, or turning on the music and doing a random dance session or, like something that's fun.
Yes.
So yeah. But yeah, I
Well,
think that'd
those,
be, yeah, different for different people. But
well,
yeah,
exactly. And I
yeah.
think the common theme in all of those that you've shared, even though they could be different for different people, is that little spark of something that brings us pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, whether it's being in nature or being with a safe person or snuggling with your kids or setting down the to-do list or turning on the music, whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
for you, you have to choose. And I love that your emphasis is on the
Mm-hmm.
choosing part because you
Yes.
can't just passively sit back and wait for it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Yeah.
actually set out and say,
Mhm.
right now I'm really feeling down. So what can I do in this moment to kind of perk up a little bit and doing
Mhm.
that thing that brings you a little bit of spark. I think that
Yeah.
is just absolutely just fabulous, fabulous advice. I mean,
Thank you.
these are all easy, simple, doable things. And the
Mhm.
list could just go on and on and on and on. It's not elaborate, it's not complicated, but it's intentional. You have to actually choose
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, intentional. And I think as you were talking, another thing that came to mind was being an active participant in it. Yeah. Being active,
Mm,
like you're choosing, but you have to, yeah. It can be
right.
so hard when you're in very, very difficult or painful circumstances. And I don't want to say that choosing joy is ignoring that.
No.
You're seeing the reality, but you're also then, okay, what can I do to lift spirits? What can I do to pause? What can I do? Yeah, like you said, to have self-care.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
important. Well, this has
Mhm.
just been a fabulous time of getting
Yeah.
to know you, Amber. I, what would I conclude by saying that I'm deeply moved by the circumstances you find yourself in
Mhm.
through your husband and your children. And again, the career path that you chose, that you had no idea how
Mhm.
much it was going to come in handy. I mean,
Yeah.
you wanted it for yourself, you wanted to be helpful to others, and then here you are, using some of this very mightily within your own family. And I think that just shows how clever God is, right?
Yeah, he plans it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I just really want to thank you. This time has been really exceptional, and I'm very grateful for you saying yes and coming on,
Mm.
and then also really, I don't want to say wishing you well, like it was flimsy. I am hopeful that,
Mhm.
you will continue this good hard work, and
Yeah.
that your husband and all your children will thrive and,
Thank you.
continue to grow into the fullness of who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm praying for healing for so many others too. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, again, you strike me as a very generous individual, so
Mm.
I'm not
Well, thank you.
surprised. Thank you,
Very good.
Amber.
It was great to meet you.
You too.